Hello and welcome to video 4 in this current series. In today's video I'm going to be discussing the power of healing, energy healing at a distance, how it works, and I'm also going to be sharing some of my own stories with you. Now, as I've mentioned already in a previous video, my own personal healing was done at a distance. Initially by a biomagnetic healer in Australia, and then later by a shaman in the United States. Now, to this day, I have not met either of these two healers, ever. And yet, they succeeded in turning my whole life around in a few short months. Now I'm a healer myself, and I can verify that the power of healing at a distance is quite extraordinary. In many cases, I feel it's even more powerful than healing face-to-face with clients. And I find that I've got probably 70 to 80% of my clients are at a distance, which is great because it means that I can find clients and work with clients from all over the world. Now, I'm not a scientist, so I can't give you a great technical explanation of how this remarkable phenomenon works. But I will say this. In quantum physics, time and space are both malleable concepts, and not uniquely as we believe them to be. And also, there have been so many experiments in quantum physics where the outcomes have been completely unpredictable and turned on their heads merely by the power of consciousness, thought, and positive intention. Now, these are things that for the shamans since ancient times, for millennia, shamanic healers have known. They've known this intuitively. For them, time is not linear. And there are 3 vital ingredients for a healing session to be successful for a shaman, whether it's a distance healing or a face-to-face healing. And they are imagination, visualization, and the power of intention. So let me tell you a little bit about how I work with my distance clients. Our initial consultation takes place as a video call or a telephone call. I personally prefer a video call because it means I can see my client face to face, I can read their body language, and sometimes intuitive perceptions arise merely because I can see how they're communicating with me, and it can be very, very useful for me. So the client discusses what his issues are and what he hopes to achieve from the sessions. I ask many, many questions as well, and we start to get to know each other. If we decide to go ahead from here, I ask the client to send me a couple of photos of himself or herself, one of the face in large plan, and another of the whole body from head to toe. These can really help me to work with and to plan my distance healing sessions. So then we decide, uniquely, without any technology at all, we choose a date and a time, and the session goes ahead. So all we need to do actually is to put the date in the diary, synchronize our watches, making sure that there are no time differences to take into consideration due to distance. And then all the client needs to do is to simply relax. I advise the client to open up to receiving the healing before the session commences. And then all he has to do, all she has to do, is to lie back and relax. But with no distractions, no technology, no books, no radio, no tablet, no phone, nothing at all, just simply lying back in stillness and opening up to receive the healing. So then, for the day of the session, after the session has concluded, I advise the client to really rest up, take it nice and steady, and not do too much. And for the 3 or 4 days following the session, I invite the client to be on very careful self-observation. So being aware of any changes that might be occurring within them. These changes could be on a physical level, on an emotional level, and even sometimes on a symbolic level, such as changes in their nighttime dreams. And after these 3 or 4 days of self-observation, we organise another video call. So we discuss our mutual feedback from the session and the reactions since the session, and we organise a plan of action, how we're going to go ahead for the next session. So some clients don't actually experience any physical reactions or sensations during a distance session. They just simply lie there, relaxed, don't feel anything at all. And yet other clients can experience all manner of reactions and sensations. It varies. Every individual is different. And of course, whether or not you feel any sensations or whether you feel a lot of sensations, it makes no difference to the actual outcome of the healing. So let me give you an example. One of my very first clients was a lady over in Australia. She suffers from a very rare form of blood cancer, and the symptoms manifest as a really red, raw redness of the skin, the face, all over her body. Terrible red, deep red, and a permanent itching that was driving her crazy. So although she was initially skeptical, we decided to embark on a series of distance sessions. And during the actual sessions, she felt nothing. She was, I think, quite disappointed that she didn't feel anything during the sessions. But it was those few days of observations after the sessions that she started to notice changes, very real changes. And after each feedback session, her feedback was getting more and more positive. After about 3 months of working together, her itching had all but disappeared, and even her friends were commenting on the reduced redness of her skin. But the real icing on the cake, if you like, was at the end of our group of sessions. She went to have a blood test done, and even her doctors were amazed to see the results of this blood tests, where the lymphocytes in her white blood cells had gone down and returned to a normal level, where they have remained ever since. And this is from someone who felt nothing at all physically during the course of the session. So as you can see, it has nothing to do with the final outcome. And yet I can share with you some other experiences with other clients. For example, I've got a client who I'm still working with at the moment. She's a young girl in her 40s, early 40s, and she's recently suffered an unexpected heart attack, which has left her completely anxious, stressed out, terrified that it's going to happen again. She's got 2 young children, and it happened in the middle of the COVID-19 lockdown period with confinement. She was just so anxious and terrified. And of course her energy system was completely seized up. So in our first session together, I was working on the chest and the throat areas to try and, get some energy flowing back in. And I began by working on the throat chakra. I opened the chakra, I could feel around, saw that it was very sluggish, and so I did a deep cleanse. And then I followed that by pushing energy, light energy, healing light, which was actually the colour of the vibration of that chakra. So it was a healing light blue light into the chakra itself to really penetrate all the way through and down into the chakra. Now, unbeknownst to me, while I was doing this work, my client was lying in her own bed, and she was experiencing all these symptoms around her throat area. Very strange. She couldn't understand what was going on, and all kinds of reactions in her throat. And then all of a sudden, and completely spontaneously, she did this. And everything opened up, and her airways cleared. She was breathing more freely than she had for weeks, and I'd succeeded in de-blocking some of this stagnant energy that was not moving, and it was part of the whole of this part of her system, this respiratory system, that was really joined together with all of the problems that she'd had with her anxieties, where she was storing her stress, all of course linked to the heart attack that she'd had. So that was our first session together, and she reported that in her feedback, which was remarkable. And she said it happened just in the first 15 minutes of the session, which of course corresponded completely with when I was doing that work on her throat. So that's an interesting story. I have another client, a musician, who has repetitive strain injury in her right hand and wrist. Now, we've embarked on a long series of sessions because sometimes these kind of sessions take time. Repetitive strain can be over many, many years developed, and it takes some time to really get the positive results that we are after. And we are making great strides right now, and we've had many sessions to get this far. And initially, my client observed a little tiny bit of neurological activity, but over the course of these many sessions, she's become so hypersensitive that she can feel just about everything I'm doing, whether it's she gets little symptoms, a bit of numbness in her thumb, or pins and needles in the wrist, or whatever the neurological symptoms are, she can manage to feel them, and she has a big clock on the wall opposite her bed, and she makes a mental note of what time she's feeling this and what time she's feeling the other. And then after the session, she writes it all down, and then in her feedback video call with me, she recounts everything. It's really quite extraordinary. Yeah, but to give you another example, just to prove that it doesn't matter whether you feel or you don't feel, that every individual is different. I have another client who, a Swedish lady, we embarked on a block of sessions together, which were very successful. But she experienced nothing during the session itself, but she went to sleep. She fell into a deep sleep each time. It was remarkable. I would start the session and she would fall asleep straight away in a really deep, uninterrupted sleep. The minute I finished the session, she would wake up, and she was so frustrated. She would say to me, "But I'm not sleepy. When I lie down for the session, I'm not tired, and yet I just can't help myself. I just go. I'm just out for the count." So again, this had very little to do with the outcomes of her healing sessions, because we had a very successful block of sessions. She was very content and satisfied with our outcomes, but she slept. Every individual is different, and every individual reacts differently. I have another client having distance sessions with me, a gentleman suffering from really acute stress, anxiety, and aggression, which has really been over a long period of time deeply embedded in his energy field. And when I work with him at a distance, he actually has very violent muscle spasms and tremors from his arms and legs right through his body as he releases some of this incredible tension within him. And that's his way of reacting to the session, and a really physical way of releasing the tensions. And finally, I have another client. We finished a block of sessions a few months ago, very successfully. She didn't feel anything during the session physically, but she actually had visions, and she could see colours. She even had flashbacks, and sometimes she would have emotions arising during this session. So it just goes to show that everybody's different. But one thing I will say, for the majority of my clients, they say that after the session and they're lying there peacefully, they're usually enveloped in a very deep sense of peace. So I find, personally, that distance sessions are more powerful than face-to-face. And I've been thinking about this a lot. And I think that it's because there is no resistance. I find no resistance at all when I'm working. Sometimes when a client comes to me face-to-face to my healing studio, they might be apprehensive, a little bit nervous, or they might be repressing certain things they don't want me to know about. And so they actually mostly unconsciously create an energetic resistance, which I then have to work through. And then I have to spend time reassuring them, or talking through things, explaining what I'm doing, etc. In a distance healing, there is no resistance. I don't need to talk. I just focus like I've never focused before. For that hour, I am completely in the visualization, the the power of intention. I'm working with that client on my massage table as if they're physically present, and it's just complete focus and complete concentration. And I think for the client too, distance healing can be quite relaxing for them and perhaps slightly easier for them. They don't have to arrive and be apprehensive or explain lots of things. We've done all the explaining in the video chat, and all they do is lie on their own bed completely comfortably and relax. So although many people are skeptical initially about distance healing, as I myself was all those years ago, I find that the experiences, the reactions and the results speak for themselves. So another thing I'd like to add is that during this current period of the COVID-19, when we've had all this lockdown and periods of confinement and so much fear amongst us all, fear arising, and it's not going away, this fear. So what better moment to have an energy healing session than at a distance? So if you would like to put aside any skepticisms that you might have in order to embark on a series of distance healing sessions with me, you'll find all of my contact details at the end of this video. Now, next time we're going to be talking about energetic protection. How can we protect ourselves energetically when we are faced with difficult situations that could be an environment or a situation or a person or a group of people that we feel are toxic energetically to us. We feel uneasy, we feel unwell when we're in this particular situation or with this particular person. So I'm going to be teaching you how to energetically protect yourselves if you're ever faced in these situations of being faced with toxic energy. So thank you so much for watching once again, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.